Okay, good morning everybody. I'm Bradford, Chief Exec at South Kesteven District Council. I'm here today to talk around a number of areas around frontline services whilst we've been going through the impact of COVID-19 and how we plan for the future. The areas to cover this I'm going to cover today, only giving you snapshots, is financial recovery, wellbeing and employee recovery, and how we return to business as usual. And probably it's quite an area of debate is what will business as usual look like in the future. So financial recovery, let's start off with the money. This is from a district council perspective. Budgets, well, we've all been going through our amended budget processes, I'm sure, in 2021. We've all reset our budgets. We reset ours in September of this year. We had to do the reset because of the expenditure in certain areas that needed addressing, and of course the loss of income. Significant losses of income in certain areas and new liabilities. We've taken on certain liabilities with some of our private contractors to ensure that we were able to maintain our services. Budgets 21-22, I think all councils up and down the country after the Chancellor's speech last week, we'll be seeing about resetting our budgets for 21-22. We know there's going to be some challenges. We know certain areas of income will not be forthcoming in this year and in next. And we know we've got some resets coming. We know we've got the business rate reset. We've got what will happen with new homes bonus, what will happen with our income, and what will happen with our investments. So some big question marks going forward. However, what have we had to do? Let's be honest, local government are really good. We're very flexible. We're very fleet of foot. We've had to redirect our budgets. We've had to furlough our staff, certainly in other areas. I'm sure you have in some of your organisations. We furloughed building control officers in the first lockdown and steadily brought those out of furlough based on business demand. We furloughed our arts staff. We have 3 arts facilities. We furloughed over 60 staff on our arts side. But we've also redirected a lot of resources. We've retrained people. We've been moving some of our arts staff to our refuse collectors. So let's be honest, we know that we've got huge challenges going forward. We know that we've got challenges where we are today, but that will give us the right platform for moving forward. We all need to be in a good space to make sure we're fit for purpose going forward. So where next? What's going to happen to local authorities' investment appetite and risk? What's going to happen to our income generation that we had profiled? What service delivery, where do we need to refocus on? What, where and how? Do we need to be putting so much money into our investments? Do we need to be careful about where we're investing at the present time? Just a couple of points on Leisure SK. This is a new tackle company that we are launching. Were we going to do it? No, we weren't. We were going back out to the market next year to procure a new leisure contractor here at South Kesteven. But because of the market conditions, the instability in the market, and we know contractors will be pricing in risk, we had to relook at it differently. Leisure SK will be a new tackle company. It will go live on the 1st of January, and we are chipping over 200 staff into that tackle company. And then that's, we've become, it's a way of insourcing, but this is a way that we control, we influence, we can pick up quality, and we are then in control of our own destiny as an authority in reference to financial liability. So just put in there that our new logo. So all through COVID, we've still had to be on the front foot, and we're still being innovative. So moving on then, wellbeing and employee recovery. This is one of the areas that has been critical, if we're honest, over the last 8 months. We've been doing pulse surveys every few months with our staff, tracking what our staff are telling us. We've got over 800 staff here at South Kesteven. We've offered professional support to all of our staff and also to our councillors, because there's been some real tricky times, we know that. We've given advice, we've given guidance, we've been showcasing ideas, we've been sharing information about coping mechanisms, and we launched something called Wellbeing Wednesday. So this was an email and information that's shared with the organisation on a Wednesday, where it picked out different topics. And as a chief exec, I've led the process about, do you know what, it's okay not to be okay, as long as you sit down, you talk, we understand. You know, and personally throughout this period of time, you know, I've had good days, I've had bad days, I've had days where I didn't want to get out of bed, but it's just recognising, you know, it's okay not to be okay. And I think we're going to have quite a bit of this going forward. So what do we need to do? We can always talk about emotional intelligence, but I think we need to improve our emotional intelligence even more. And also our emotional intelligence in different ways. Before we could pick up issues when we're face to face with somebody, we're not having that anymore. You know, we know that we're in very much of a virtual period at the present time. So improving emotional intelligence techniques in different ways is really critical for us going forward. We need to help, we need to support, and we need to identify you know, teams and individuals that need that extra time and support from us. We've got to foster good working conditions. When we come back, you know, when we've all had the vaccine and it's all under control, whoever knows when that will be, you know, timeline at the present time is we'll all be vaccinated by August 2021. We've got to look at the working conditions, what people are returning to. Do we need the office accommodation structured like we've always had it structured? Do we need, you know, can we support people in different ways? Do we need different types of working conditions to support our teams? So there's a critical piece of work that's going on in my organisation about what does good look like in the future. I think we've all in local government always had a caring culture. This, you know, has come to the forefront over the last 8 months for sure. That needs to continue. We need to be those leaders of organisations and of teams that care, show that we're caring, be genuine about that we're caring, just to keep people who are working in difficult times and difficult circumstances performing to their best of ability. I've certainly seen more issues coming forward, and we need to make sure that there's confidentiality through everything that we do. Not saying that we've never had it, but I think it's something that we always need to keep reminding ourselves of. People's situations and individual situations need to be dealt with very confidentially. I put down there about breakdowning the stigma in the workplace. You know, there's always been stigma in the workplace about mental health. You know, it's always been a bit of a taboo subject. Could never put down on a sick note, you know, that you're actually struggling with your mental health. But you know what, we've got to break down these stigmas, and we've got to be supportive. And remember, as before, good working conditions, caring cultures will help break these stigmas in the workplace. I'm sure, like yourselves, that we've seen certainly some challenging behaviours through this last 8 months. It should be really important that those behaviours are challenged. We see it more on team meetings, the keyboard warriors becoming email warriors, and we need, as leaders and as managers and as peers within our teams, to challenge those behaviours. We need to be treated with respect, and we need to treat others with respect. So challenging those behaviours is going to be critical now and moving forward. So where are we going with business as usual? Will business ever be, you know, as usual? And it's kind of more about setting the new norm. We do 80,000 bin collections a week. We've not missed a bin round through the whole COVID period. Very proud of my working teams. You know, I've got 200 street care staff out there day in, day out, who, you know, it's a public facing arm of this authority. However, I've got another hundreds of people working agilely and home working. And let's be honest, we'll be really ready for it. We mobilised our whole workforce within 3 weeks to be home working. There's still difficult and tricky times. You know, we need to make sure that staff have the right home working environment, the right equipment in place. You know, I'm getting a challenge back at the moment. You know, it's costing people a lot more money to work from home in reference to electricity costs, heating costs, and it's not all about saving. Certainly if you were, okay, some people might save on transport, but a lot of people worked close to where they worked. So some of these are some challenges that we need to address going forward. We all know about presenteeism. You know, people's performance is judged by the length of time that they sit on the chair in the office. You know, this has got to move on and move on considerably. Performance leadership needs to be at the heart of what we do, judging people by their outcomes, and certainly making sure that, you know, good recognition is given when due, and also behaviours of poor performance or areas where we are concerned about performance are addressed at the earliest stage. Work-life balance. What's the old saying? Do as I say, not as I do. I think work-life balance is always a challenge for everybody, certainly as committed and loyal in local government. If you find us today, work-life balance will always be a challenge to us in local government because we are that committed to making a difference. But we do need to make sure that we try as much as we possibly can to have that balance in our lives. And I know, I'm sure everybody's thinking, listening to me today, you know, that's easier said than done, and it is, but we do need to try and find ways to cope with the spikes, and that the spike doesn't become the norm. We've retrained staff, we've redeployed people. That will still be a norm going forward. Areas where staff capacity potentially is there, that we do need to redeploy them into some critical services going forward. And an interesting one here is kind of invasion in our homes. It sounds like a bit of a movie title, doesn't it? But the invasion in our homes, I was talking to some customer care teams the other day, and they were concerned about the invasion. They feel quite invaded in their homes because they're taking calls, and when they get cross customers on the phone or very irate or frustrated, they're being shouted at or taking all of this information on board, and it's in their homes. And normally that would have been in a working environment, and now they're, you know, this is happening in their homes, and they feel quite invaded by that. So we do need to give some time and energies into understanding and supporting our staff if they do feel that way. Customers. Right, well, let's be honest, there's been a huge channel shift. This is something that's just happened overnight. It happened over a couple of weeks, didn't it? This is something that we've been planning for many, many years, about moving that channel shift, moving people away from reliance in coming into some of our buildings to speak to us, to discuss things. The question I always ask myself is, were we ready? To be honest, I don't think we were. I think it was something that was being planned, and it keeps being planned, and it keeps being planned. Digitalisation has been put a huge pressure on digitalisation and you know, online application forms. We offered a face-to-face service all the way through COVID-19. If a member of the public, a customer, did need to definitely come and see us, there was there an offer. Interestingly, even though we were offering 10 slots a day, we didn't have one of those slots utilised for the first 5 months of operation. People chose to engage with us in different ways. Partnership approaches. I think we're all finding this channel shift challenging. Some of our partners are as well, but we need to make sure that we do have that joined up approach. I've seen it more very much with the volunteering section. We weren't joined up at all. Everybody was doing their own little thing. But through some of the work that we've done through our community hub, through this period of time, the join up with the voluntary sector has been incredible. In reference to expectations, we do need to make sure that our customers' expectations are met, and ensure that our response rates are right, telephone are answered, I know I've had some critical problems with some of my service areas, but those, I think, moving forward will be addressed. I think I'll just put in there behavioural change again. We've seen a lot more frustration through emails, through complaints, through the conversations on the telephones. People's tolerance levels have very much changed to what was expected and acceptable before. So I think that I'm sure there'll be some critical pieces of work going forward around behavioural change. And let's talk about members as well. We mustn't forget our members in this period of time. And I know there's some members on the call today. You know, members have gone from being able to sit around a table, pop in and see members of staff, to a very, very virtual world. And I do think, you know, we've got legislation for this to continue till May next year, and I think it's going to continue longer into a hybrid model. So how can we ensure that there is higher engagement? We've got access to our meetings, which are very virtual now. We're seeing, you know, we've seen up to 100 people on some of our council meetings. We've seen, only yesterday was a cabinet meeting. Okay, there was a little bit of a meaty subject on there, but I had 48 people on my watching, members of public and press on my cabinet meeting. I cannot remember the last time I got that kind of numbers, or even 10 people sitting in a cabinet meeting that was, which was council facility based. So I think that engagement, that higher engagement has been one of the positives. But I do think there's those increased tensions. I think there's the increased tensions between political groups through the virtual meeting settings, and we need to ensure that everybody's treated with respect. And the information is shared as much as you possibly can in this virtual world. Because, you know, sometimes we've got to be sending paper copies out because it's very difficult for members and officers to be reading copious amounts of information plus having a meeting on their electronic devices. So support from officers is there, but I've just put a few boxes there at the bottom. How many days do we tell somebody say to you, you are on mute? We're having virtual briefings. We've moved to voting by exceptions. And please put your comments in the chat box. You know, this is a new world for us all. And, you know, for members not being able to get out into their communities and not get into to meet with members of the teams, I think is been very challenging. So there are positives and there are the downsides of what's happened. Moving on to businesses, only this week we've got now 6 more grant schemes to be given out. One came up through overnight, which was the wet grant, as they're calling it, which is the amount to a pub only serving alcohol. So we've got 6 granting systems working at the moment. This is a pretty much a bit of a nightmare for some of our businesses, but we're working through. We've shared. In the first round of grants, we shared and distributed over 30 million grants in the first period of time. So, and last week we had 700 applications in for the latest discretionary grant. And another, like I said, another 6 grants schemes will be going live this week and next. I think the appetite for risk and development, not only from a local government point, but from businesses, is definitely changing. We've been actually on site and having virtual meetings with some of our key major developers, where they are, renewing and refreshing certain key developments across the district, and that's from major food production, major food logistics, to housing schemes. So there's lots of changes happening within the development sector. But what I'm not seeing the developers going cold. I'm really still seeing developments coming forwards. I've touched on Leisure SK. Of course, for businesses, we took that decision because of instability in the business community and leisure services. And it'll be interesting to see what other businesses that potentially that we do need to look at and address. I think our economic footprints are key. Economic footprints aren't on boundary levels, and we need to be working with our partners a lot closer. Land holdings and developments don't just are just contained within a boundary. I think we need to be looking wider around our economic footprints. We're certainly starting to do that with some of our closer councils, our local authority partners in the area of Lincolnshire. Businesses have adapted to the virtual world. We're having a lot more development meetings online. But I think one of the things that we need to pick up on is networking. I do think there's been quite a bit of a loss with the virtual world at the moment with networking, and it will be interesting with that networking opportunities, how they get developed in the future. So the last slide from myself, communities. Well, we've seen an amazing community spirit throughout this period of time, and we're doing everything we can to harness that community spirit to keep it going. We've seen huge increases levels of volunteering. That's volunteering by just supporting your neighbour and volunteering to support others. Wellbeing support has been critical. We've offered befriending services, we've offered signposting services. At one point, we were supporting over 1,800 people directly through a befriending service, and we've supported over 18,000 people through our community hub. So what will the asks of our communities be going forward? We've seen a massive move towards the love of open spaces. I think there'll be greater expectations on us supporting outdoor spaces. What will be their expectations on services and how they access services? Piece of work that really needs to be refreshed. And our environmental focus. You know, I think there's been a real push towards being more green, sustainable transport, walking, cycling, outdoor space. So I really do think that, and that's something that we're looking into as one of our key priorities here at South Kesteven, about our environmental focus going forward. So the last one from me, I think we've got to welcome the challenge that's been put in front of us, both financially and through the changes in behaviours from COVID-19, and we're moving forward. But I think we ought to just harness that change and continue to share best practice through the likes of working with APSE and other organisations to take us forward. Thank you for listening.